Have you ever walked into a room and felt instantly drained without knowing why? Or noticed that certain people seem to leave you emotionally exhausted after every interaction? In a world increasingly filled with emotional chaos and energetic noise, protecting your inner vitality is more important than ever. This video, Energy Sovereignty: How to Reclaim Your Power and Stop Emotional Drainers, takes you on a profound journey to understand the invisible dynamics of personal energy and how they shape your thoughts, relationships, and spiritual direction. Across 5 powerful steps, we'll explore how energy is unconsciously given away, how to build spiritual and emotional boundaries, and how to transmute toxic influences into fuel for inner strength. We'll also uncover what it truly means to become the master of your own energetic space and align it with a deeper, soul-driven purpose. Stay with us as we unpack the psychology, spirituality, and practical wisdom behind reclaiming your energy once and for all. What you'll discover may just change how you experience yourself and the world around you. In social and psychological dynamics, it is often observed that certain individuals consistently provoke discomfort in others, not through their actions, speech, or external behavior, but simply through their presence. This phenomenon is not rooted in arrogance, rudeness, or any deliberate confrontation. Instead, it is intimately tied to energizing a field of consciousness, intention, and authenticity that radiates from within. When you commit to your healing, establish inner alignment, or operate from a place of self-awareness, you emit a frequency that is fundamentally different from societal norms, roles, or emotional patterns. This difference is often perceived by others not as inspiration, but as disruption. The core reason why your energy may feel threatening to others lies in what it reflects back to them. Human beings are, consciously or unconsciously, attuned to emotional and psychological mirrors. When you have done inner work, cultivated self-integrity, or begun to live in accordance with your values, your presence naturally exposes the contrast in those who have not taken similar steps. You become a silent yet powerful reminder of what others have denied, suppressed, or neglected within themselves. To the unhealed ego, this is not comforting. It is invasive. They may perceive your groundedness as superiority, your calmness as indifference, or your truthfulness as aggression, when in fact you are simply being yourself. This response is particularly pronounced in environments rooted in emotional inauthenticity. In workplaces, families, or social circles where denial, people-pleasing, or hierarchical control are the norm, an energetically sovereign person becomes disruptive without even speaking a word. They break the invisible contracts of silence and conformity. They no longer participate in collective anxiety or hidden power games. As a result, others may instinctively push back, withdraw, gossip, or criticize, not because you have harmed them, but because your energy unmasks the artificial structure they have relied on for emotional survival. Energetic discomfort can also be linked to unresolved trauma and projection. When people have not processed their own emotional pain, your presence can trigger their defense mechanisms. For example, if someone carries unacknowledged shame, they may interpret your confidence as judgment. If someone has suppressed anger, they may read your firmness as threat. This has little to do with you, and everything to do with the psychic framework they are trapped within. Energetic perception bypasses language and logic. It is primal, intuitive, and often misinterpreted. Thus, those who are energetically attuned are often misunderstood by those who are emotionally fragmented. Another dimension to this phenomenon is the subconscious power struggle that emerges in relational energy fields. When one person operates with clarity, purpose, or peace, it automatically reveals the lack of such qualities in others. This can destabilize social equilibrium, especially if the surrounding people are unconsciously invested in maintaining their current state. Your energy, in such cases, becomes a silent invitation for growth, which is often rejected because growth requires discomfort. In this way, even love can be perceived as a threat if it challenges someone's victim narrative or emotional stagnation. This energetic reaction can manifest in various subtle behaviors: avoidance, passive aggressiveness, sarcasm, dismissal, or even unsolicited criticism. These are not personal attacks, but protective strategies employed by people to regulate their inner dissonance. The discomfort they feel is not because of who you are, but because of what they are not yet ready to face within themselves. You become a trigger, not due to hostility, but due to contrast. This contrast is uncomfortable because it invites change, and most people resist change when it is not initiated on their own terms. Furthermore, energetically sovereign individuals are often miscategorized as too intense, too serious, or too different. These labels are used to reassert social familiarity and reduce the cognitive tension that your presence may create. People seek emotional safety through predictability. And when your energy operates outside of their expectations, they may try to normalize or nice you to reduce their own sense of uncertainty. In doing so, they avoid facing the deeper question your presence raises: what am I avoiding within myself? Carl Jung, one of the foundational figures in analytical psychology, introduced the idea of psychic energy as a central component of human motivation and behavior. Psychic energy, in Jungian theory, is not a physical substance, but a metaphorical and psychological force that drives an individual's thoughts, feelings, actions, and inner conflicts. Much like physical energy fuels the body, psychic energy fuels the mind and spirit. It is a manifestation of the libido, not limited to sexuality as Freud once defined it, but as a broader life force that seeks expression, meaning, transformation, and individuation. Understanding this energy is essential for comprehending how people lose themselves to external influences, how emotional exhaustion occurs, and how one can reclaim inner sovereignty. Psychic energy, according to Jung, is inherently neutral. It can be directed toward either constructive or destructive purposes, depending on the level of consciousness of the individual. When one is unaware of their psychological makeup, or is heavily influenced by social conditioning, psychic energy becomes fragmented, repressed, or misdirected. For instance, a person might unconsciously project their unresolved fears onto others, use excessive control to mask insecurity, or overwork to avoid emotional confrontation. In such cases, the psychic energy is not being utilized in alignment with the self, but is instead hijacked by unconscious patterns and complexes. The concept of complexes is vital in Jungian psychology. These are emotionally charged clusters of thoughts, feelings, and memories that can operate autonomously within the psyche. When someone is not conscious of a complex, it can dominate behavior and perception without their awareness. A classic example is the inferiority complex, where psychic energy becomes trapped in a pattern of self-doubt and compensatory behavior, rather than being directed toward growth or authentic expression. The energy is absorbed in defending the ego or managing internal conflict. This misalignment leads to chronic psychological fatigue, emotional disconnection, and often spiritual emptiness. Jung emphasized that psychic energy is teleological. It seeks a goal. The ultimate aim of this energy is not pleasure or power, but wholeness. He called this process individuation, the journey toward becoming one's true and integrated self. When energy is flowing toward individuation, it manifests as creativity, insight, spiritual yearning, and deep emotional resilience. The individual begins to experience coherence between thoughts, values, and actions. This alignment is not only psychologically healthy, but also spiritually empowering. The person no longer lives as a reaction to external forces, but becomes an intentional agent of inner truth. However, the flow of psychic energy is often blocked. This blockage can occur due to trauma, repression, societal conditioning, or fear of change. When blocked, the energy does not disappear, it becomes distorted. It may manifest as anxiety, addiction, compulsive behavior, or unexplained fatigue. Such symptoms are not random. They are the psyche's way of signaling that something essential has been ignored or misdirected. The restoration of energy flow requires conscious engagement with the unconscious through practices like active imagination, dream analysis, shadow work, or meditative reflection. These methods enable the individual to reclaim split-off parts of the psyche and redirect energy back into a coherent and meaningful path. Jung also made it clear that psychic energy is relational. It does not exist in isolation, but is affected by the psychic field of others. This relational dynamic explains why certain environments feel uplifting while others feel draining. When someone is in the presence of authenticity, integrity, and psychological clarity, their energy is often elevated. In contrast, being around manipulation, denial, or unresolved emotional chaos can lead to energetic depletion. The psyche intuitively responds to these conditions, either expanding in openness or contracting in defense. Therefore, to maintain energetic sovereignty, one must be discerning about emotional atmospheres and relational dynamics. Moreover, the symbol plays a central role in how psychic energy is processed. In Jungian theory, symbols are carriers of deep psychological meaning that cannot be fully expressed through rational language. When a symbol resonates with the unconscious, such as archetypes like the hero, the wise old man, or the shadow, it mobilizes psychic energy toward transformation. This is why myth, ritual, and dream imagery hold such power. They serve as vessels through which repressed or dormant energy can be accessed and reintegrated. In this light, reclaiming psychic energy is not merely a mental exercise, but a symbolic journey back to the authentic self. The human energetic field is not merely a poetic or spiritual metaphor. It is a reality acknowledged across traditions and, increasingly, within psychological and neuroscientific frameworks. Carl Jung's analytical psychology supports the understanding that energy, as an inner psychic force, can be transmitted, absorbed, or rejected in interpersonal encounters. One of the most striking yet perplexing experiences individuals face on their path toward authenticity is the seemingly irrational discomfort others exhibit in their presence. When your energy disrupts others, it is rarely about something superficial like appearance or status. It is often because your internal state reflects or challenges something deeply buried in their unconscious. People with a strong, grounded, or unusually clear energetic presence often serve as unconscious mirrors for others. They unintentionally reflect what others have repressed, denied, or chosen not to confront in themselves. For example, someone who has cultivated deep emotional awareness and peace may inadvertently expose the inner restlessness or disconnection in someone else. That person, not being fully conscious of their discomfort, may react defensively, dismissively, or even aggressively. This phenomenon, while subtle, can manifest in various social interactions: passive-aggressive remarks, avoidance, unsolicited criticism, or strange power dynamics in otherwise ordinary conversations. One clear sign your energy is affecting others deeply is when you often find yourself being misunderstood despite speaking clearly. This is a symptom not of poor communication, but of energetic incongruence in the relational field. When your presence exudes authenticity or self-possession, it can trigger others who are not in alignment with their inner truth. These individuals may perceive you as arrogant, intimidating, or too much, when in reality, your energy is simply contrasting with the disowned psychological material. Carl Jung described this dynamic in terms of projection, where people unconsciously attribute aspects of their psyche, usually the shadow components, to others rather than integrating them. Another sign is when you attract confessions, vulnerabilities, or emotional unloading from strangers or casual acquaintances. Your grounded energy becomes a kind of psychic container, a safe presence in which others instinctively feel drawn to offload their suppressed emotions. While this may seem flattering or meaningful at first, over time it can become energetically draining. This dynamic often occurs because your presence unconsciously signals that you can hold space for emotions that others cannot regulate on their own. If left unchecked, it leads to imbalanced relationships where emotional reciprocity is absent and your own energetic field becomes burdened with others' unresolved material. Moreover, you may notice that certain individuals begin to distance themselves from you without clear reason or explanation. This distancing is not necessarily a reflection of something negative you have done, but rather a result of energetic incongruence. As your inner clarity and self-awareness increase, you become less tolerant of inauthentic behavior and more aligned with truth. This shift is often intolerable to those who rely on social masks or external validation for their sense of self. In Jungian terms, your individuation process may be disrupting the collective norms and expectations of the social unconscious, prompting others to withdraw as a defensive response. People who are highly sensitive to energetic shifts may also experience somatic signs in the presence of others who are energetically incoherent. These can include tightness in the chest, pressure in the solar plexus, headaches, or sudden fatigue. Such sensations are not mere coincidences, but subtle indicators that your energy field is reacting to disharmonious frequencies. The body often knows before the mind does, and learning to read these energetic responses is essential for navigating environments where your presence is perceived as disruptive or challenging to others. In professional or public settings, you may find yourself being excluded from informal networks, passed over in discussions, or subtly undermined despite your competence. This is a more systemic form of energetic rejection that can occur when your presence silently questions the established power dynamics or cultural norms. Your energy becomes a form of unspoken resistance, and others may instinctively respond by preserving the status quo. This type of social resistance is particularly common among those who are undergoing profound inner transformations or embodying truths that contradict collective illusions. The deeper reason your energy might disturb others is because, at its core, authentic energy carries a transformative charge. It implicitly asks others to rise to their own truth, to dismantle their defenses, and to confront what lies beneath their habitual patterns. While some may embrace this call, many resist it fiercely. Your energy then becomes not just a reflection but a catalyst, challenging the inertia of the unconscious mind and stirring discomfort, envy, admiration, or confusion in equal measure. Projection is one of the most pervasive and influential psychological mechanisms explored by Carl Jung and subsequent depth psychologists. It refers to the unconscious process by which individuals attribute their own repressed emotions, desires, fears, or traits to someone else. While Freud originally introduced the concept, Jung gave it a broader spiritual and existential framework. He emphasized that projection not only distorts perception, but also fundamentally alters the way we interact with others and experience the world. When it comes to personal energy and presence, projection becomes especially significant, as it influences how others perceive you and how you perceive them, often without either party realizing it. At the heart of projection lies the human struggle with the shadow, the unconscious repository of traits, thoughts, and impulses we deem unacceptable. These shadow elements are not inherently negative. Rather, they are simply aspects of the self that have been pushed out of conscious awareness, often due to societal conditioning, trauma, or internalized moral judgments. When individuals are not actively engaged in self-reflection or psychological integration, they tend to project their shadow onto others. This can manifest as irrational anger, excessive admiration, jealousy, or distrust directed toward people who are, in reality, simply reflecting something within the projector's psyche. In the context of energy dynamics, projection can profoundly skew how your presence is interpreted by others. For example, if someone harbors unacknowledged feelings of inadequacy, they may perceive your self-confidence as arrogance or superiority, If a person has repressed their own spiritual longings or emotional depth, they may experience discomfort or suspicion around someone whose energy radiates authenticity or inner peace. This is not a conscious act of misjudgment. Rather, it is the psyche's defense mechanism at work, shielding the individual from facing their inner conflicts by externalizing them onto someone else. These projections often come with strong emotional charges, making them feel intensely real to the person doing the projecting. This is why you may find yourself caught in misunderstandings, conflicts, or resistance despite having no ill intent or overt behavior to justify such responses. You become a symbolic figure rather than an actual person in the eyes of the projector. This symbolic overlay not only affects interpersonal relationships, but also has the potential to influence entire group dynamics, particularly in workplaces, families, or communities where projection becomes a shared, unconscious agreement. Carl Jung believed that confronting and withdrawing projections is essential for individuation, the process of becoming a whole and integrated self. He argued that until we make the unconscious conscious, we will continue to meet our shadow in the world, mistaking it for fate or external antagonism. This principle has profound implications for those seeking to protect and reclaim their energetic sovereignty. Without understanding projection, one might internalize others' misperceptions or mistakenly adjust their behavior to conform to what is essentially a psychic illusion. Recognizing projection for what it is allows for greater clarity, emotional boundaries, and psychological autonomy. Energetically sensitive individuals, empaths, or those engaged in inner work often become frequent targets of projection. Their expanded awareness or heightened presence can illuminate parts of others' unconscious minds, provoking defensive reactions that seem inexplicable. These reactions are not reflections of who you are, but rather of what the other person cannot yet see in themselves. However, unless one understands this mechanism, it becomes easy to question one's worth, dull one's light, or suppress authentic expression in an attempt to avoid discomfort or conflict. Projection also operates in reverse. People may idealize or romanticize individuals who embody traits they wish to cultivate within themselves. This form of positive projection, while seemingly flattering, is equally misleading. It creates unrealistic expectations, emotional dependence, or distorted power dynamics. The person being idealized may feel overwhelmed, misunderstood, or burdened by projections that do not reflect their actual identity. Understanding projection enables one to hold space for such responses without absorbing them or reacting impulsively. On a broader scale, projection plays a significant role in cultural narratives and societal conflicts. Entire groups, ideologies, or nations project collective fears and unresolved histories onto others, leading to prejudice, scapegoating, and division. In such environments, maintaining energetic sovereignty requires discernment and inner alignment. One must be vigilant about not internalizing collective projections and instead focus on cultivating inner integrity. The clearer one becomes internally, the more accurately one can perceive reality, free from the distortions of both personal and collective projections. Human energy is not merely a biological or psychological function. It is a profound expression of one's consciousness and spiritual potential. When individuals begin to explore the subtle dimensions of their energetic presence, they come into contact with something far greater than moods, emotions, or momentary vibrations. They begin to encounter the deeper purpose of their energy, its unique frequency, its signature, and the impact it carries in the relational and collective field. This realization marks a turning point in personal development, as it transitions the seeker from simply protecting energy to intentionally directing it in alignment with a higher calling. Every person's energy carries within it the imprint of their experiences, beliefs, wounds, aspirations, and latent capacities. But beneath this personal layer lies something universal, a deeper current that seeks to flow through the individual in a way that contributes meaningfully to the collective good. Carl Jung often referred to this process as individuation, wherein a person, by becoming whole within themselves, contributes to the healing and wholeness of the wider human community. Energy, in this context, becomes a vessel of transformation. When cultivated consciously, it not only elevates the self, but also becomes a light for others. Aligning with the deeper purpose of your energy requires self-awareness, honesty, and a willingness to transcend habitual patterns of ego-driven behavior. It asks one to question, why do I enter a room with a particular emotional tone? What unspoken messages do I transmit through my presence? What values, intentions, and truths am I embodying through my energy field? This introspection opens the doorway to a refined state of being, one that is less reactive and more intentional, less scattered and more coherent, less influenced by external chaos, and more grounded in inner knowing. In a world increasingly filled with distraction, manipulation, and energetic fragmentation, aligning your energy with its deeper purpose is not merely a personal choice. It is a radical act of coherence. It asserts that you are not a passive recipient of collective energies or unconscious narratives. Instead, you become a conscious transmitter of integrity, clarity, and presence. You are no longer simply defending yourself against toxic dynamics. You are actively radiating a frequency that invites harmony, depth, and meaning. Spiritual traditions across the globe have long taught that energy flows where attention goes. When your attention is consumed by fear, resentment, or superficial desires, your energy becomes scattered and disempowered. But when your attention is aligned with compassion, truth, service, or creativity, your energy becomes magnetic and transformative. This is not an abstract spiritual ideal. It is a lived, embodied reality that manifests in daily life, relationships, work, and personal expression. The clarity of this alignment often determines the nature of the opportunities, challenges, and connections you attract. The deeper purpose of your energy may not be something you discover all at once. It is often revealed gradually through synchronicities, inner nudges, and meaningful encounters. It requires listening, not just with the mind, but with the heart, body, and soul. When you honor this unfolding process, your energy becomes a bridge between the inner and outer worlds, the personal and the transpersonal. You begin to recognize that your presence is not neutral. it is always contributing to something, either reinforcing patterns of unconsciousness or creating pathways to awakening. As you refine your awareness of energetic alignment, it becomes clear that not every environment, person, or pursuit is worthy of your full presence. Discernment becomes key. This is not about judgment or withdrawal, but about honoring the sacred responsibility of your energy. You begin to choose situations that nourish your spirit, people who respect your boundaries, and projects that reflect your authentic purpose. In this way, alignment with your deeper energetic purpose becomes the foundation for an empowered and meaningful life. This process also involves healing the dissonance between who you are and who you present yourself to be. When your inner values are not aligned with your external expression, your energy will feel conflicted and inconsistent. But when you live in integrity, when your thoughts, emotions, actions, and beliefs resonate in harmony, your energy becomes clear, potent, and unmistakably authentic. This energetic coherence not only transforms your inner world, but has a ripple effect on those around you, often inspiring healing, growth, and awakening in ways you may never fully see or measure. In an era marked by emotional overload, social volatility, and spiritual disconnection, reclaiming one's energetic sovereignty is no longer a luxury. It is a necessity. This journey begins by understanding that your energy is your most intimate and influential resource. As explored in the first keynote, recognizing how and why your energy is drained, whether through toxic relationships, unresolved trauma, or unconscious self-abandonment, is the foundation for meaningful change. Awareness becomes the gateway through which healing and reclamation are made possible. From there, protecting your energy through healthy boundaries and emotional clarity ensures that you are no longer a passive receptor of others' projections, but an active curator of your internal landscape. This is further empowered by learning to transmute negative influences into opportunities for growth. As covered in the third keynote, emotional resilience, when fused with spiritual intelligence, transforms challenges into catalysts, pain into insight, and overwhelm into strength. This reclamation deepens when you embody conscious energetic stewardship. You begin to recognize that every thought, word, and gesture transmits a frequency, and with that realization comes both power and responsibility. You no longer merely guard your energy. You shape it with intention, aligning it with your highest values and purposes. Ultimately, as explored in the fifth keynote, your energy is not only about you. It is an extension of the greater whole. When you align your personal field with its deeper purpose, you become a beacon of coherence, healing, and authenticity in a world desperate for truth and light. Energy sovereignty, then, is not just about personal well-being. It is about spiritual contribution. It is the quiet revolution of reclaiming your presence, owning your power, and becoming the energetic architect of a more conscious, compassionate, and purposeful life.